I guess when you're a celebrity or if you're a person of public interest, you gotta be super careful. Anybody can do anything. It's just like, I'm not normal no more.
Big Dick Deviance is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy.
For what Will and Diddy did to him. With Jaden and Justin present.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more videos. Orlando Brown, speaking as someone with deep insight into the inner workings of Hollywood, emphasizes that the situation involving Bryce Gray, Will Smith, and other industry figures extends far beyond a single incident. He draws particular attention to Bilal, a former close associate of Smith, whose revelations have shifted public perception and exposed the lengths to which those in power may go to protect their own. According to Orlando, after Bilal decided to speak out publicly about the alleged misconduct he witnessed and the behind-the-scenes manipulation, there were immediate and deliberate attempts to contain the narrative. These efforts were not subtle. They involved strategic planning to prevent further disclosures, protect reputations, and maintain the public image of those involved. A significant element of these suppression efforts, Orlando explains, was the discussion of money as a tool to enforce silence. According to his account, there were conversations about offering substantial financial incentives to Bilal to ensure he would refrain from providing further interviews or revealing additional details about the events he witnessed. This is not an uncommon tactic in the entertainment industry, he notes, but the scale and urgency of the proposed payments highlight just how high the stakes were. Money, in this context, functions not as a reward, but as a mechanism of control, an unspoken contract meant to keep powerful narratives unchallenged and maintain the illusion of order and propriety within Hollywood's hierarchy. Orlando also stresses the psychological dimension of these efforts. Beyond financial pressure, individuals like Bilal were placed under immense stress and scrutiny, creating an environment where speaking out felt risky and isolating. The underlying message was clear: visibility and truth were secondary to loyalty and discretion. Orlando argues that this dynamic has become systemic in Hollywood, where reputations, contracts, and careers are tightly interwoven with the willingness of insiders to adhere to unspoken rules of silence. Those who violate these norms, intentionally or unintentionally, often face social, professional, and even legal repercussions.
I want to love you because everybody else loves you. I said, if that's what you want to do, then do it. But he kept acting up. And then one day, I said, what the F is wrong with you? And he was like, you know. He said, you know Will me. You know Diddy made me suck his penis. You know what's going on. You know Charlie made me suck. And I said, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea. So he crying, no blood is coming from his nose. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I'm like, yo.
What reignited public interest in Bryce Gray's career trajectory wasn't a new scandal or leaked footage, it was Katt Williams' recent interview. In that conversation, Williams spoke candidly about the ways powerful figures in Hollywood manipulate and, at times, sabotage the careers of rising talent behind closed doors. He didn't name Bryce directly, but the timing, context, and details he shared made it clear to many listeners who he was referencing. The narrative Williams presented wasn't just gossip, it was a critique of structural power in Hollywood and how mentorships, while often framed as supportive, can also carry hidden consequences for young actors. According to Williams, the issue lies in the intersection of guidance, control, and access. When a young talent like Bryce Gray is introduced to industry heavyweights, people like Will Smith and Diddy, there's an expectation that mentorship is purely beneficial. After all, these are figures who have successfully navigated the treacherous waters of Hollywood. They offer opportunities, connections, and insight that are inaccessible to most newcomers. But mentorship can also come with strings attached. Insider sources, including Jaguar Wright, previously warned that these relationships can sometimes place young talent in situations where they are exposed to pressures, influences, and dynamics that they are unprepared to handle. These pressures can manifest in subtle ways: decisions about career direction, exposure to high-risk social environments, and influence over personal choices that may ultimately affect professional opportunities. Jaguar Wright, in particular, had been raising alarms about Bryce's circumstances for over a year before Williams' interview brought the issue back into the public conversation. She described Bryce as being one of several young men who had been placed in distressing situations under the guise of mentorship. According to Wright, Bryce was shuffled from one influential figure to another, promised career guidance and opportunities, while his well-being and agency were largely ignored. Her testimony paints a picture of a system where mentorship is entangled with control, influence, and hidden agendas. This is not merely about career advice. It is about navigating the treacherous realities of Hollywood's power hierarchies, where young talent can easily be overwhelmed or misled by those who ostensibly offer support.
Who's your favorite?
Black Thought. I'm just saying in general. Black Thought.
Okay.
Red or Run.
Okay.
And Erykah Badu.
Soon after these incidents began to surface, lawyers and legal representatives entered the picture, signaling that the situation had escalated far beyond private disputes or family concerns. The law claims that both Will Smith and Charlie Mack allegedly stepped in to manage Bryce Gray's legal representation. According to Bilal, this move appeared, on the surface, to be supportive, ensuring Bryce had professional guidance, but behind the scenes, it created a complicated dynamic that placed additional pressure on him. The law emphasizes that while legal counsel was ostensibly provided to protect Bryce, there was also a clear effort to control the narrative and limit what could be publicly disclosed. The law asserts that this legal involvement was coupled with intense pressure on him to remain silent. He describes conversations and interactions in which he was subtly and sometimes explicitly told to let the matter go, to avoid discussing what he had witnessed, and to not interfere with the mentorship or relationships surrounding Bryce. According to Bilal, this pressure wasn't delivered in a hostile or openly threatening manner at first. Instead, it came across as professional advice, couched in the language of legal precaution and concern for careers. However, the underlying message was unmistakable. Speaking out or revealing details about Bryce's experiences could have serious consequences. In addition, the law claims that the involvement of lawyers created a dual effect. On one hand, Bryce was shielded from immediate legal or professional jeopardy. On the other hand, the presence of attorneys became a mechanism for control. The law explains that legal representation in this context often serves less as advocacy for the individual and more as a tool for managing reputation and limiting exposure for powerful industry figures. The law alleges that this created an environment where Bryce felt increasingly isolated and unsure of whom to trust. The very people who were supposed to mentor, protect, and guide him became, in effect, part of a system that constrained his ability to speak, act independently, or seek outside support. Furthermore, the law highlights that this legal framework extended beyond Bryce. He claims that associates, family members, and anyone with knowledge of the events were implicitly bound by the same pressure, creating a network of silence around the situation. Bilal himself recalls the weight of this unspoken agreement and how it contributed to a pervasive sense of fear and uncertainty. In his view, this is indicative of a broader pattern in Hollywood, where rising stars and their inner circles are often subjected to quiet coercion under the guise of mentorship or legal counsel.
Do you feel like what you're saying reaches the ears of Will Smith and he needs to get at least, if there's smoke, there's fire, let me grab a fan?
Number one, as far as Will Smith is concerned, until he does right by all of those children that were harmed and corrupted while in his care, children that grew up to be men, boys like Bryshere Gray, August Alsina, your own son. Like, your own son.
Orlando Brown concludes his analysis by framing Hollywood not merely as an entertainment industry, but as a survival ecosystem where power, influence, and image often outweigh honesty and transparency. According to him, what many perceive as glamour, freedom, or prestige is frequently a meticulously managed illusion, maintained to protect the status quo and ensure that profitable narratives remain unchallenged. He stresses that the industry is less concerned with truth than it is with control, controlling stories, controlling talent, and controlling the perception of fans and investors alike. When someone like Bilal or Joseph steps out of line and threatens to expose inconvenient truths, the system responds not with public acknowledgement, but with discreet pressure, legal maneuvering, or strategic financial incentives designed to restore order quietly. Orlando frames the experience of these whistleblowers as a symbolic representation of a much larger problem, the tension between individual agency and institutional power. In Hollywood, even those with fame, wealth, and influence are rarely fully autonomous. They must navigate the complex web of studios, management teams, contractual obligations, and social expectations. Stars are celebrated publicly, yet their personal narratives and professional decisions are often tightly monitored, subtly influenced, or outright manipulated. Orlando argues that this system is designed to maintain appearances and protect those at the top, ensuring that the machinery of Hollywood continues to operate without disruption. He further elaborates that the cases of Bilal, Joseph, and others are not isolated anomalies. They are part of a recurring pattern where insiders who attempt to challenge or expose misconduct are met with resistance. This resistance can manifest in multiple ways: threats of litigation, offers of financial hush money, or social and professional ostracization. Orlando emphasizes that the goal of these tactics is not necessarily to punish indiscretion, but to maintain a controlled narrative and prevent stories from reaching a wider audience that could alter public perception. This calculated suppression highlights the imbalance of power inherent in the industry, where emerging talent and even seasoned associates are expected to defer to established stars and executives, regardless of ethical considerations.
Happens in the entertainment industry that makes someone go into just being very close with, men on men contact. It's interesting, I'll say the least.
You want to know the thing that bothers me most about Bryshere Gray? I actually think he's doing all of this so they'll take him back in the club. And they're not. They're going to keep gaslighting you and playing with you, promising you one thing or another. Not now. Just next year's going to be your time. You need to get yourself out there. You need to...
Orlando Brown continues by addressing a crucial misconception many outsiders have about the nature of fame and freedom in Hollywood. There's a prevailing idea that reaching a certain level of stardom equates to ultimate independence, that once someone becomes a household name, they control their career, their public image, and their personal narrative entirely. Orlando categorically rejects this notion. He insists that even the most prominent stars operate within a tightly controlled ecosystem, bound by contracts, studio obligations, public relations teams, and a network of influential industry figures who all have a vested interest in maintaining appearances. This, he argues, is why celebrities often appear polished, composed, and in control, even when the reality behind the scenes is far messier. In the case of Bilal and his revelations, Orlando illustrates how fame can be a double-edged sword. While being associated with high-profile names like Will Smith or Diddy brings visibility, access, and opportunity, it also imposes an implicit code of conduct. Deviating from that code, whether by speaking out, exposing misconduct, or questioning the system, can trigger immediate consequences. Orlando emphasizes that this control is not always overt. It can take subtle forms such as private warnings, veiled threats, or pressure to comply with unwritten rules. Yet, the consequences are real and can profoundly affect careers, reputations, and mental health.
They're both bisexual, they do weird things in their house, and young men have left their house fucking screaming to get away from them in their mentorship. Meek Mills. Bryshere Gray. Left that house fucking screaming. August the only one that stayed, and I guess he was really sick. He needed a dog.
Hey, man.
And that was they kid's friend.
Yeah.
Who the fuck can believe that shit is real by any means with all of that?
Makes it tough to believe.
With all of that. When they was busy fucking partying.
Tonight, we're diving deeper into the trajectory of Bryce Gray's career, examining how his meteoric rise seemed almost destined for success, and yet, ultimately, why it took a sudden, bewildering turn downward. To understand the story fully, we have to start with the early moments that positioned him for fame and the influential figures who entered his life during that critical period. At the very beginning, Bryce didn't have wealth, fame, or a family with Hollywood connections. What he did have was undeniable talent and the kind of presence that could command a camera and captivate an audience, qualities that drew attention from industry insiders who recognized his potential immediately. One of the key figures in Bryce's early career was a talent manager named Charlie Mack. Mack saw something in Bryce that others either overlooked or underestimated. He believed not only in Bryce's raw ability, but also in his potential to become a true star. Mack pulled strings, leveraged his connections, and secured Bryce an audition for Empire, the show that would catapult him into the public eye. When Bryce auditioned, it wasn't just a routine reading. He commanded the role with authority, charisma, and depth. It became clear to everyone in the room that he was more than ready for the spotlight. He landed the role of Hakey Lion, and with that, his life changed almost overnight. Fans, critics, and executives alike began to recognize that this was not just a talented young actor, it was someone poised to become a major force in Hollywood. The show itself became a massive cultural phenomenon. Bryce's performance resonated with audiences and helped cement Empire as one of the most talked-about series on television. His character became iconic almost instantly, and Bryce became a household name, earning recognition, adoration, and industry clout. It was during this period of rapid rise that mentorship opportunities arose. Charlie Mack, understanding the complexities of navigating Hollywood, introduced Bryce to Will Smith, a figure widely seen as a gatekeeper, someone with immense influence in the entertainment world. The idea was straightforward on paper: mentorship. Smith's guidance could help Bryce transition from a successful television actor into a long-lasting Hollywood superstar, expanding his reach into films, endorsements, and potentially music.
For what Will and Diddy did to him, with Jaden and Justin present, that tape exists.
Okay.
I really hope none of that baby oil was used on those kids. That would just be a bad taste. Baby oil on babies.
You can't say that the flavor cap was sponsored by Johnson & Johnson. You just come on. Come on.
Starting to sound that way, ain't it?
No.
All that talent, and they fucking and she let Charlie tune that boy up on coke, knowing that he was bipolar and had ADHD. What kind of mother would do that to her son? Turn him into a prostitute so you can pretend to be something more than what you are, which is nothing more than a Philly whore. You're a whore. You're a bigger whore than they're making your son out to be, that's for sure. Because he didn't have no choice. You was down by all. I'm sorry. The Bryshere conversation for me is not easy. Because I came to Belial and I asked Belial to help me save the kids, and all he was worried about was his fucking book.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Don't nobody
Definitely.
care about these kids. Don't nobody care about these kids.
The story takes a much darker turn when Bilal, Bryce Gray's brother, enters the picture. According to Bilal, what he witnessed on set and behind the scenes was far from ordinary. It went beyond the usual pressures of the entertainment industry. Bilal claims that Bryce, despite being a rising star and the public face of talent, frequently displayed signs of emotional strain that were ignored by those around him. The pressures from industry insiders, mentorship expectations, and high-profile figures created a volatile environment in which Bryce was forced to navigate situations far beyond his age and experience. Bilal describes witnessing moments where Bryce broke down emotionally, clearly distressed, and made startling claims about the treatment he was receiving from major Hollywood figures, including Will Smith and Diddy. Bilal alleges that these incidents were not isolated, but rather symptomatic of a larger culture in Hollywood where young actors are exposed to complex power dynamics without adequate protection. Bryce reportedly confided in Bilal about experiences that suggested exploitation and undue pressure, which were emotionally damaging. These included situations where he felt coerced into accepting certain roles, attending high-profile events, or interacting with influential figures in ways that compromised his comfort and personal boundaries. Bilal emphasizes that Bryce's rise to fame, while outwardly glamorous, concealed a series of internal struggles and ethical dilemmas that went largely unseen by the public. What makes Bilal's testimony particularly significant is the shift from anecdotal concern to allegations that imply serious misconduct. He claims that Bryce confronted, in confidence, both Will Smith and Diddy regarding these issues, and that the reactions he received were inadequate or dismissive. Bilal recalls that Bryce, in moments of vulnerability, described feeling trapped within a system designed to elevate his career at the expense of his well-being. According to Bilal, the combination of mentorship, public scrutiny, and private coercion created a scenario in which Bryce's personal agency was systematically undermined.
Bitch came to me and begged me for my help. I told her to get the fuck away from Charlie. I did everything that I could do to get Bryshere, to help her get Bryshere. out of California into Chicago State to be ready for filming. She knew what Will did to him. But because of Charlie, see? And Charlie had promised her all kinds of things. And all she had to do was pretend to be a broken down single mom who worked her way up through the ghetto and raised a superstar for television, when the truth is she wasn't nothing but a drug dealer's whore. That's all she ever was. She went from drug dealer to drug dealer, and then she fucking snitched on whoever she needed to snitch on until she could get to the bigger bag, until she got with fucking Larry Lair, my friend who raised Bryshere in $1 million home. Your whole book is fucking lies, Andy. And I hope anybody that bought it asks for a fucking refund and demands it comes out of your pocket every time they see your son's gay porn.
According to Jaguar Wright, Bryce Gray's mother played a critical, yet complicated, role in the trajectory of her son's career, a role that is rarely discussed publicly. On the surface, she presented herself as the archetype of a devoted, struggling single parent who had sacrificed everything to raise a rising star. This narrative, carefully curated and reinforced through interviews, social media, and public appearances, painted a picture of unwavering support and protection. However, Jaguar asserts that this carefully crafted image was only part of the story. Behind the scenes, she claims, Bryce was being maneuvered into increasingly precarious situations, often at the insistence or tacit approval of adults in his professional circle. These circumstances, Jaguar argues, placed Bryce at significant risk, both emotionally and professionally. Wright's allegations suggest that Bryce was essentially handed off from one industry handler to another, each promising mentorship, opportunity, or career advancement, yet failing to prioritize his safety or well-being. According to her, this sequence of transfers was less about his development and more about maintaining appearances and appeasing powerful figures in Hollywood. Each handler provided guidance that, while framed as professional mentorship, often exposed Bryce to pressures he was not prepared to navigate. This left him vulnerable to manipulation, burnout, and professional missteps. Jaguar emphasizes that while Bryce may have appeared to be succeeding on the outside, landing roles, working on high-profile sets, and developing relationships with industry heavyweights, the reality was that his agency and autonomy were being steadily eroded. Jaguar also highlights a troubling duality in Bryce's mother's role. Publicly, she reinforced the image of a nurturing figure protecting her son from industry exploitation, but privately, she allegedly encouraged, or at the very least permitted, Bryce's involvement in high-pressure and potentially dangerous professional environments. This discrepancy, Wright suggests, created conflicting messages for Bryce, leaving him unsure whom to trust and what boundaries he could enforce. According to Jaguar, this combination of public image management and private facilitation contributed directly to Bryce's vulnerability within Hollywood's high-stakes ecosystem.
I heard that that's not only the tape that's being shot. There's some other tapes out there, other people, too, with him. And him doing some things with some other people. So there's quite a few tapes that might be out there, what they're hearing. And I don't want to see the tapes, but I want to know if they're really true. Because if they got some tapes out there and it's with some underage, whether it's celebrities or not, it's going to be crazy, bro. It's going to be real crazy. And they're going to have to bring that to forefront because the prosecutor's going to want those tapes. And they're going to do whatever they have to do legally to get those tapes. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. So we just better hope for his sake, that's just a bunch of bull crap. But then there's lawyers out there saying, yeah, the tape does exist. Lawyers got on television to say the tapes exist. I don't really know or trust that, because they was trying to say he had a tape with one of the bodyguards and this lady that came out. So we don't know what to think.
Once Bryce Gray had entered Hollywood with the momentum of empire, his career seemed unstoppable. The television show was a juggernaut, the kind of cultural phenomenon that could define careers and launch young actors into superstardom almost instantly. Bryce's role as Hakey Lion had captured the attention of audiences nationwide, turning him into a household name and earning him accolades for his raw talent and screen presence. At that point, The expectation was clear. This was the beginning of a long, thriving career in entertainment. But as many insiders now suggest, the trajectory that seemed predestined for greatness began to shift almost immediately once mentorship and high-profile connections became part of the equation. Charlie Mack, Bryce's initial manager, had guided him skillfully to this point, recognizing his extraordinary potential and making strategic decisions that maximized his visibility and appeal. Mack's introduction of Bryce to Will Smith was supposed to be the next logical step, a connection to a figure who could provide mentorship, open doors to film opportunities, and help navigate the complex politics of Hollywood. Will Smith, of course, is widely regarded as one of the most influential figures in the entertainment industry. His insights, guidance, and connections could theoretically accelerate Bryce's career into the stratosphere. On paper, the combination of raw talent, strategic representation, and mentorship from one of Hollywood's most powerful stars was perfect. However, according to later accounts, things didn't unfold as planned. While Bryce gained access to powerful figures like Will Smith and, subsequently, Diddy, especially as he began pursuing a music career alongside acting, the relationships that were meant to foster growth may have simultaneously introduced unforeseen pressures and complications. These were mentorships in name, but some insiders now argue that the guidance Bryce received was mixed with influence, control, and exposure to dynamics he was unprepared to navigate as a young adult. Suddenly, the clarity and autonomy he had initially enjoyed in shaping his career gave way to the complexities of Hollywood politics, hierarchical pressures, and the expectations imposed by powerful figures who had their own interests and reputations at stake. This is where many observers suggest that Bryce's career began to stall. Opportunities that had once seemed obvious or easily attainable became tangled in industry maneuvering. Decisions that should have been straightforward were now influenced by the agendas, reputations, and risk management strategies of those around him. The introduction to Diddy, in particular, is now viewed with a sense of caution. While it initially appeared to be an opportunity to expand into music and diversify his portfolio, insiders now question whether this additional connection added stress, exposure, and complicated dynamics that contributed to the slowing momentum of his rise.
It's a damn mess. It's no other way to put it. This dude is going crazy, right? He's out there allegedly with male prostitutes. He's pissing in the trailer. He's acting psychotic, right?
The same thing he's doing now.
Beyond that. But this is why a show is going on, right? So I'm like, I pull him to the side, right? And I said, listen, I'm here to help you and so forth and so on. So he was like, all right, I feel that. He said,
pay close attention to what Katt Williams has recently revealed, because this is the kind of story Hollywood has tried to bury for years. It sheds light on a rise and fall in the entertainment world that, for many observers, seemed abrupt and almost inexplicable. At the center of this narrative is Bryce Gray, also referred to as Bryshere Gray in some circles, a young actor whose career trajectory once seemed unstoppable. If you remember his breakout role on Empire, you likely marveled at how someone with so much early momentum could seemingly disappear from the public eye almost overnight. Bryce's star was shining brighter than most, and for a moment, it seemed as though Hollywood itself had placed him on a fast track to superstardom. However, according to Katt Williams, and corroborated by accounts that predate his comments, Bryce's disappearance from the limelight was far from random or coincidental. Williams' recent statements suggest that there were structural and personal forces in play behind the scenes, factors that systematically undermined Bryce's career. This isn't a story of bad luck or poor performance. It's a tale of influence, power, and the darker realities of the entertainment industry. Hollywood, despite its glamorous exterior, operates on networks of mentorship, patronage, and alliances, where who you know often matters more than what you know or how talented you are. For Bryce, these networks initially seemed like a ladder to success. He was talented, hardworking, and had the charisma that can captivate casting directors, producers, and audiences alike. When he was cast in Empire, he didn't just perform well, he dominated the role, capturing attention and earning critical acclaim. Yet, the very forces that helped propel him to prominence, mentorships with influential figures, introductions to industry heavyweights, and guidance from established stars, appear to have had unintended consequences. According to Williams, what should have been a protective and nurturing environment may have instead facilitated conditions that contributed to his rapid career decline. This framing challenges the common narrative of Hollywood as purely meritocratic. Bryce's story, as Williams and others recount it, suggests that even the brightest young talent can be vulnerable to systemic pressures, predatory practices, and the complex dynamics of power that govern the entertainment world. In short, Bryce Gray's rise and sudden fall are not isolated incidents. They are emblematic of the larger mechanisms at work in Hollywood, mechanisms that can make or break careers, often in ways that the public never fully sees. Katt Williams' revelations do more than recount a single story. They reopen a discussion about mentorship, power dynamics, and accountability in a highly competitive, high-stakes industry where talent alone is rarely enough to guarantee lasting success. And for fans who remember Bryce at the height of his fame, these revelations may finally provide some clarity about how such a rapid and dramatic shift could have occurred.
No idea. So he crying, no blood is coming from his nose. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I'm like, yo, listen. So I grabbed my hug. I said, listen, I don't know. I didn't know what happened. Nothing. I was just asked to come. Is this true? Yeah, no, I'm gonna let you about to see if it's true from the paperwork. Oh, we telling something that got paperwork involved. Let me get to the paperwork. So at this point, I'm crying because I feel his pain. Like I could kind of tell when somebody phony and all, but it was the pain where the snot was coming out his nose. His nose was bleeding. He in the corner screaming, balled up, right? Like I could feel his pain, like he had been raped, like he had been forced to do something. You understand what I'm saying? So I said, well, listen, let me find out what's going on. He said, don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. Right? So I'm like, Yaz, I'm like, yo, just relax. I said, everything gonna be okay, you know? And he was like, no, they're gonna get me if I say something. They're gonna get me if like he's spazzing, right? So he calmed down after a couple of days. I reached out to Charlie Mack, who was managing the book. So Charlie was managing Yaz.
Oh.
So Charlie is the one that brought Yaz to Will. Now, okay, so let me stay within the story. So I reached out to Charlie. I said, listen, I said, Yaz is going crazy. He's saying that Will raped him, and he said Diddy made him suck his penis, right? So he was like, what? He was like, yeah, oh yeah. He was like,
what? You think he'll talk about it? You think Yaz will talk about it?
I don't. As I finish the story, you judge, right? Okay. So now so all this is speculation right now. Ain't no paperwork involved, right? Okay. So now Charlie flies down there, boom, 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 and he tells me, listen, man, I had a talk with Yaz, whatever the case may be. Everything is cool or whatever, right? So about a week later, he spazzes out again, right? I knew you knew. I knew you was going to say something, right? I'm like, Yaz, how can I not say something? You said you were raped, and you said Diddy made you suck his penis. This is what you told. I said, dude, this is criminal.
Moving forward in this complex narrative, Orlando Brown emphasizes that the dynamics surrounding Hollywood power structures are far more intricate than outsiders often realize. He argues that the situation involving Will Smith, Diddy, Bilal, Joseph, and other insiders is emblematic of a deeply entrenched system where influence, alliances, and reputation dictate the trajectory of careers far more than raw talent or ethical behavior. According to Orlando, these stories are not isolated incidents or merely sensational headlines. They represent a recurring pattern in which young talent is groomed, showcased, and then subtly pressured to conform to an unspoken hierarchy. Those who question or challenge that hierarchy, intentionally or inadvertently, quickly find themselves at the mercy of both legal and social mechanisms designed to maintain order and silence dissent.